Greetings to all our tennis aficionados tuning in from around the globe. It is fantastic to have you with us again. I need to issue a fair warning right now. If you happen to be standing up, you need to locate the nearest chair and sit down immediately. And if you are already settled in, I suggest you grip those armrests with white-knuckle intensity, because the spectacle that just unfolded at the Mubadala Abu Dhabi Open is far more significant than a simple update to the scoreboard. What we are witnessing is nothing short of a full-blown seismic event, a magnitude 10 earthquake that is currently rattling the very foundations of the sporting world. This represents a fundamental rupture in the established hierarchy of the Women's Tennis Association, triggering shockwaves that are being felt all the way from the tropical heat of Manila to the freezing avenues of Moscow and echoing right back to these desert courts in the Emirates. We are here to dissect a result that completely defies statistical probability, absolutely mocks the predictions of every major betting house, and entirely overturns the rigid established pecking order that has governed professional tennis for the last few seasons. When the tournament brackets were first unveiled to the public, the road to the final appeared to be paved, polished, and reserved exclusively for the absolute giants of the game to march through without resistance. Enter Elena Rybakina, currently ranked number 3 on the planet, a veritable juggernaut, often referred to as the Ice Queen, who wields a service game so lethal and precise it feels practically unfair to her opponents. Although she officially competes under the flag of Kazakhstan, her tennis DNA, her upbringing, and her technical training are deeply and inextricably rooted in the powerhouse tennis culture of Moscow. With the collective gaze of the entire post-Soviet region locked onto her silhouette, she stepped onto the center court in Abu Dhabi as the undisputed colossal favorite to sweep the match. We are talking about a legitimate major title holder, a specialist on hard courts who dominates the baseline, and a fierce competitor who typically finds her best rhythm when the pressure and the heat are turned up to the absolute maximum. Staring her down from across the net was the massive underdog, the wildcard entry, the Filipina sensation known as Alexandra Eala. She is undeniably a prospect on the rise and a name that has been demanding respect, but when placed against the raw kinetic energy and the blistering ball speed generated by the world number 3, most expert analysts calculated that she had about as much chance of winning as a snowball surviving in the inferno of a volcano. The pre-match script called for a clinical 2-set demolition job by Rybakina, envisioning the match as nothing more than a glorified high-intensity practice session en route to lifting the trophy. Yet, as we are reminded time and again, athletics are never decided on spreadsheets or paper predictions. They are decided on the gritty red clay, the slick grass, and today on the brutal, unforgiving synthetic hard courts of Abu Dhabi. True victory is forged in the fire of the human spirit, and the bulletin arriving from the Emirates at this very second confirms exactly that. The status quo of the racket sport universe has just been violently inverted and turned completely upside down. In a contest that is already being hailed as the most volatile, adrenaline-fueled, and strategically complex bout of the entire year thus far, Eala has achieved what many deemed impossible. She stood her ground against the firepower of Rybakina in a duel that did not merely test the limits of their physical stamina but obliterated them entirely. We are titling this breaking news chapter, Russia Stunned. And please believe me when I tell you that phrasing is not an exaggeration in the slightest. Digital platforms and forums throughout the vast Russian tennis community are currently in a state of total disarray. Message boards are lighting up with disbelief, and the expert analysts have essentially lost their voices. What exactly precipitated this descent into chaos? It happened because Rybakina, typically the commander who controls the court with surgical precision, crashed headfirst into a defensive barricade so ferocious and intelligent that it deconstructed the mythology surrounding her elite status. To call this result a mere upset is frankly an insult to the performance we just watched. This was a televised insurrection against the tennis elite. We observed a stylistic collision that is destined to be studied in future coaching manuals. You had Rybakina's heavy artillery, flat, rapid-fire, overwhelming force. And opposing that was the southpaw wizardry, the relentless tenacity, and the miraculous defensive retrievals displayed by Alexandra Eala. We watched breathless exchanges stretching past 20 and sometimes even 30 strokes at a time. We saw velocity on serves that the laws of physics suggest should be unplayable. Yet they came back over the net even faster, culminating in a tiebreaker sequence that felt like it lasted an eternity. Each individual point played out like a standalone thriller movie. It was a high-stakes gamble of fate executed with nothing more than carbon fiber technology and yellow felt. The reason for this stunned silence and the true quality of the fight lies in the fact that Rybakina did not underperform. I need to emphasize this point clearly. The heavy favorite did not collapse under pressure or gift the win away through unforced errors or sloppy mistakes. On the contrary, Rybakina arrived with her full arsenal, loaded the thundering aces, the crushing forehands, and Eala simply absorbed every single ounce of it. She took the heaviest blows a major champion could deliver and reflected them back with an accuracy far above her current ranking. The aftershocks of this duel are going to be immense. For Rybakina, this match exposes a potential vulnerability against this fresh, rising wave of tactical left-handed players. Regarding the massive Russian fan base who arguably still view Rybakina as one of their own, regardless of the flag she plays under, this serves as a harsh wake-up call that their dominance is far more fragile than they previously believed. As for Alexandra Eala, this moment represents her official coronation on the world stage. She has officially arrived. This performance is a broadcast signal to every other player on the tour that the training wheels are gone, and she is now hunting the apex predators of the sport. Now we are going to take the time to dissect this match sequence by breaking it down to the granular level. We will explore the mental warfare, the geometry of the court, and those critical fleeting seconds where the advantage oscillated like a pendulum swinging in a violent storm. We are going to discuss the volatility of the matchup, the intense eye contact between points, the subtle strategic shifts, and an audience that transformed from polite golf claps to deafening stadium-shaking roars once they understood that history was unfolding before their eyes. Strap yourselves in for a deep dive into the mechanics of a sporting miracle, because this is not going to be your standard recap. This is a forensic investigation into exactly how a titan was brought to her knees. This is Alexandra Eala, taking on Elena Rybakina, live from the heat of the Abu Dhabi Open. The tennis world has been brought to a complete standstill by a storyline so explosive it is dominating headlines across every continent. I'm about to walk you through the breaking news and the pivotal moments right now. Strap yourselves in because we are about to conduct a forensic professional-grade analysis of exactly what went down in the main segment coming up immediately. It is time to peel back the layers of this shocker and dissect the anatomy of an absolute stunner. To truly comprehend the sheer scale of this detonation, we must first analyze the combustible elements mixing together inside the stadium's pressure cooker. Visualize the opening scene, a timeless narrative of the scrappy underdog standing toe-to-toe against the imposing ice queen of the court. Context is absolutely paramount here. Elena Rybakina arrived in Abu Dhabi for the 2026 season, not just with the intention of competing, but with a singular mission to establish total dominance over the field. Her path on the hard courts leading up to this specific flashpoint had been nothing short of imperial, bordering on tyrannical domination. To watch Rybakina go to work is to witness the absolute pinnacle of first-strike knockout tennis. Her service game is rightfully cemented as one of the most lethal weapons in the entire history of the WTA Tour. It is not merely about the raw velocity frequently registering at 120 miles per hour, but rather the terrifying surgeon-like precision of her placement. Her strategic blueprint is frightening in its simplicity. Deliver a thunderous serve, force a weak return, and follow up with a forehand that obliterates the ball. Game, set, match. The style is ruthless, incredibly economical, and downright scary for opponents. Back in the Russian and Kazakhstani media, the pre-match conversation was virtually non-existent based on cold, hard statistics rather than any personal animosity. All the articles and pundits were already looking ahead to who she would meet in the BAS trophy round, treating this specific matchup as nothing more than a light warm-up exercise. The collective shock that is currently sweeping through Russia stems directly from this supreme level of overconfidence. The general consensus was that she was simply untouchable, a towering figure who could not be toppled by a mere mortal. Then, enter Alexandra Eala, the Filipino phenomenon who has been quietly but diligently sharpening her blades in the shadows, waiting for her moment to strike. Forged in the fires of the Rafa Nadal Academy with prestigious junior titles under her belt, the professional circuit remains an entirely different beast to tame. Playing as a southpaw, Eala wields a unique geometric advantage, particularly when she carves those sliding serves out wide on the ad side to stretch her opponents off the court. However, we have to be honest. Her arsenal is not stocked with the same sledgehammer power that Rybakina possesses in spades. Instead, she relies on playing kinetic chess, reading the flow of play perfectly, and utilizing a heavy topspin forehand specifically designed to wreck the timing of a flat hitter. Rybakina literally looms over her, boasting a significant reach and leverage advantage that appeared insurmountable when you looked at the tail of the tape. The so-called experts glanced at this matchup and scoffed, predicting Eala would be blasted off the surface without enough firepower to offer a retort. They could not have been more wrong. With the score tightening early on, the trap was suddenly sprung. Despite the script holding firm for the opening act, Rybakina began with an intimidating hold at love. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of aces reverberating like cannon fire against the back wall of the stadium. It truly seemed like the beginning of the end until Alexandra stepped up to the baseline and completely cracked the illusion of invincibility. Rather than attempting to fight fire with fire, Eala poured ice-cold water on the fuse. By employing slicing cuts and wicked lefty curves, she dragged Rybakina out of her comfort zone, forcing the giant to stoop and lunge for awkward low balls. While appearing to cruise along, Rybakina suddenly found herself staring down a dangerous love 30 deficit on her own serve. She was visibly rattled by two rare slips. Correction, those were forced errors. Eala had boldly stepped inside the baseline on a second serve that is usually a heavy kicker. Robbing the Titan of precious reaction time, she rifled a backhand straight down the corridor, leaving Rybakina completely stranded and flat-footed. A stunned hush fell over the crowd, while the Russian broadcasters likely froze in the commentary booth, their pens hovering in total disbelief. Rybakina managed to erase the immediate breakpoints with her signature aces, but the seed of doubt had already taken firm root. Eala was not merely staying alive in the rally. She was actively stalking her prey, leading to the tiebreak that eventually sparked the global headlines. This was not just a rally. It was a grueling psychological siege. Rybakina would unleash a 100-mile-per-hour rocket, and Eala, scrambling madly, would somehow sky a defensive lob back into play. Neutralizing the threat at every turn, Eala snatched the opener 7-6, sending a jolt of confused electricity surging through the stands. The impossible was actually happening before our eyes. A wildcard had stolen a set from the world number 3 by outsmarting her rather than trying to outgun her. Point number 3 involves the tactical masterclass of lefty spin dismantling flat velocity. Now let us dissect the actual mechanics of this upset. Why did Rybakina falter, and why is the tennis world so utterly perplexed? Rybakina is a player who feeds on rhythm. She needs incoming pace to borrow, redirecting that energy like a mirror reflects light. The harder you hit the ball at her, the quicker she sends it back, provided the timing is clean. Alexandra Eala deliberately starved her of that speed. Eala employed what we affectionately call junk balling, a mesmerizing mix of fluctuating heights, speeds, and heavy rotations. She looped heavy topspin shots that kicked high above Rybakina's shoulders, forcing the 6-foot star to strike downward, while flirting dangerously with the net tape. Immediately after, Eala would completely flatten the trajectory, skidding the ball low across the turf to change the eye level. This relentless sabotage of the strike zone triggered a cascade of unforced errors from Rybakina and her racket. Rybakina glared furiously at her player box, gesturing wildly at the court. Her gear, anything but the equipment itself, was not the real culprit here. It was the geometry that Eala was painting on the canvas. The cross-court exchange became the primary kill zone. Normally, Rybakina's backhand is impenetrable, yet Eala was not feeding her standard flat balls. She was serving up extreme dips and sharp angles that defied the norm. Rybakina was getting dragged physically off the court, leaving the lines wide open for Eala to strike into the open space. At 4-2, the Empire looks ready to strike back. You absolutely have to tip your cap to the sheer tenacity of the third-ranked player on the planet. That second frame seemed to pump the brakes on the upset alert, making it look like business as usual was finally resuming. Rybakina emerged from the break with fire in her eyes, drastically increasing the velocity on her service games and looking to dominate. She abandoned the patience of baseline exchanges, opting instead for immediate aggressive strikes to shorten the points. Rybakina absolutely commanded the court, claiming the set 6-2. At that moment, it appeared the Cinderella story had run headfirst into a concrete barrier. The sheer physical exhaustion was visibly starting to drag Eala down. Trying to track down Rybakina's thunderous ground strokes is the athletic equivalent of doing full-speed sprints for 45 minutes without a break. Even the broadcast booth seemed to exhale, declaring that the natural hierarchy had been re-established now that the favorite found her rhythm. However, that assumption was premature as the contest was about to explode into chaos. We headed into a decisive final set, which quickly morphed into a grueling test of endurance. The third set is the crucible where true champions prove their worth, and history is written. Eala utilized a strategic bathroom break, returning to the court in a brand new outfit and miraculously, seemingly revitalized energy. By this point, the battle had transcended a simple tennis match. It had transformed into a 12-round heavyweight prize fight in the middle of the desert. The opening 4 games were technically holds, yet they were vicious skirmishes that repeatedly went to deuce. Suddenly, Rybakina's first serve percentage started to plummet, hinting that exhaustion was setting in. Alternatively, it might have been the crushing mental weight of facing a wildcard entrant who simply would not stay down. The pivotal moment arrived with the score deadlocked at 4 games apiece. With Rybakina serving at 30 all, Eala anticipated a 115-mile-per-hour thunderbolt, blocking it deep to ignite a lung-busting 24-shot exchange. The ball flew back and forth as the spectators held their breath with every swing. Desperate to end the torture, Rybakina pulled the trigger on a line drive winner, but missed the mark by the tiniest fraction of an inch. That error gifted Eala a break point, and the noise inside the arena reached deafening levels, threatening to blow the roof off the complex. While Russian supporters in the gallery looked on in horror, burying their heads in their hands, Eala seized the moment, securing the break with an exquisite touch-perfect drop shot. It was a display of sheer nerve against a superstar of Rybakina's stature. Just like that, the underdog found herself serving for the biggest win of her life at 5 games to 4. The weight on Eala's shoulders at that baseline must have been absolutely crushing. This was the specific juncture where the global audience anticipated the rookie would crumble and choke away the lead. It is a standard script for long shots to get dizzy when looking down from the precipice of a monumental upset. True to form, Rybakina dug deep to save 2 championship points. She mercilessly attacked Eala's second serves, forcing the game to deuce, and eventually clawing her way to an advantage-out breakpoint. The feeling in the air was palpable. If Rybakina broke back here, she would almost certainly steal the victory from the jaws of defeat. But Eala had other plans, unleashing the shot of the entire tournament. A sprinting forehand passing shot fired from well outside the doubles alley that miraculously curled back in to clip the sideline paint. Even Rybakina had no choice but to clap her racket for that piece of magic. No one could have foreseen the seismic waves this result would send through the sport's foundation. When Rybakina's final return drifted long beyond the baseline, the emotional release was immediate as Eala dropped to the clay in disbelief. Rybakina stood motionless, at the net a portrait of genuine shock. Why is the tennis world so rattled? It comes down to the massive disparity in the rankings. We are witnessing a clash between the solidified world number 3 and a scrappy contender who is barely fighting her way inside the top 50. The gap in ranking points, major tournament experience, and career earnings is vast. Furthermore, the fast hard courts of Abu Dhabi are theoretically designed to amplify Rybakina's power game. This is not the venue where a tactical counterpuncher is supposed to be able to pick apart one of the tour's biggest hitters with such ease. Eala seemed to defy the laws of physics while answering all critics regarding her consistency. Rybakina has built a reputation as an immovable object in the opening rounds of events. She virtually never concedes matches to opponents ranked outside the top 20. This exit leaves a massive void in the tournament bracket and has thrown the betting markets into absolute disarray. Then you have to consider the geopolitical storylines, as the fan bases from Russia and Kazakhstan are known for their intense passion and loyalty. They widely regard Rybakina as the rightful successor to the crown of women's tennis supremacy. Watching her get dismantled by a surging talent from the Philippines, a country with a developing but significantly smaller tennis pedigree, is a jarring shock to the established order. This result directly challenges the long-standing narrative of Eurocentric dominance in the sport. Consequently, the post-match fallout has been nothing short of explosive. While the handshake at the net was professional, it was visibly frigid. Rybakina was seething with internal frustration, but the true firestorm was taking place on social media. The word shock is currently trending across all platforms. Sports analysts are already dissecting Rybakina's footwork frame by frame, debating whether she is concealing an injury or simply took Eala too lightly. However, let us flip the narrative for a second. This story should not focus on where Rybakina failed. The focus must be on exactly what Eala executed perfectly. This match resonates so loudly because it signals a potential changing of the guard. While it might be premature to declare a new era, this is a clear warning that the elite trio or quartet at the top of the WTA are no longer untouchable. The chasing pack is hunting them down. The match statistics paint a vivid picture. Rybakina committed a staggering 45 unforced errors compared to just 18 from Eala, who simply refused to donate free points. When looking at breakpoint conversions, Eala was ruthless, converting 4 out of 5 opportunities. That represents clinical efficiency, seizing her chances the moment they materialized. Her performance at the net was arguably the deciding factor. Eala won 80% of the points when she moved forward, proving she wasn't merely defending from the back. She was actively finishing points. This triumph for Alexandra Eala is far more than just another mark in the win column. It is a definitive statement. It serves as a loud, undeniable declaration that she belongs under the bright lights of the world's most prestigious center courts. Conversely, for Elena Rybakina, this is a brutal reality check and a reminder that in the WTA peril lurks in every single round. A ranking is merely a number the moment the ball is put into play. Make no mistake about it, we are witnessing the real-time ascension of a new global fan favorite. What started as a fairly standard crowd in Abu Dhabi, mostly leaning toward the established star power of Rybakina, completely flipped the script by the final set erupting into a unified chant for Eala. That unpredictable energy is exactly why we watch sports. It is the addictive rush of seeing a true underdog rise to the occasion, which is the very heartbeat of professional tennis. So, where do we go from here? The dust is barely settling on the hard courts here in the Emirates, and everyone is still trying to process the magnitude of what just happened. Make no mistake, the aftershocks of this seismic upset are going to resonate throughout the entire 2026 WTA Tour. As for Elena Rybakina, she has some serious soul-searching to do tonight. You are seeing the headlines claiming her home country is in total shock, and honestly, that is not an exaggeration. It perfectly describes the genuine panic that is currently sweeping through her millions of supporters. We have to ask the hard questions. Was this merely a momentary lapse in concentration, just a really bad day at the office for a top-tier player? Or is it something more dangerous? Did Alexandra Eala just publicly release the tactical manual on how to dismantle Rybakina? You better believe coaches and rivals are already analyzing the match tapes frame by frame. They are going to study exactly how Eala utilized heavy topspin and varied her depth to completely neutralize Rybakina's aggressive pace. The lesson here is that even the so-called Ice Queen can crack under pressure if you bring the heat and show relentless determination. Now, Rybakina will bounce back because that is simply what champions do. However, her aura of invincibility has certainly taken a massive hit this week. She needs to regroup, perhaps adjust her game plan against left-handed opponents, and come back swinging harder than ever. Turning our attention to Eala, this is not just a win. This is the definitive launchpad for her career on the big stage. We have seen plenty of newcomers score a massive upset and then disappear into obscurity. But this victory was built on high tennis IQ, not blind luck, proving she has the staying power to compete at this level. She didn't just hope for the best and blast winners from the baseline. She methodically deconstructed a world-class titan piece by piece with surgical precision. The Philippines has officially found its newest sporting icon, and the WTA Tour has just gained a nightmare opponent that nobody wants to draw in the early rounds. Looking back, history is going to remember this showdown in Abu Dhabi as the tipping point where the narrative shifted. It was a classic case of unshakable spirit, overcoming raw physical power, and the atmosphere was electric. It was shocking, yes, but it was also absolutely beautiful tennis to watch. Before we sign off on this update, I need to hear what you guys think about this match. How are you interpreting this seismic shift in the tennis world? Do you think Rybakina was just sleepwalking through the match, or is Eala proving she has the talent to be a top 10 elite player? Is the panic we are seeing from the Russian media justified, or is this just another day of standard unpredictability on the women's tour? Jump into the comment section right now and let me know. I want to see your hottest takes. To all the Rybakina loyalists, give me your explanation for this sudden collapse. And for the Eala supporters, what is the ceiling for her potential? How far can she actually go? Now that she has taken down the dragon, does she have enough gas in the tank to go all the way and lift the trophy? Hey, if you enjoyed this in-depth breakdown and you prefer getting the gritty details rather than just reading a boring scoreboard, do me a solid favor. Smash that like button harder than a Rybakina forehand winner. Make sure you subscribe and turn on those notifications so you never miss a beat. We are going to be tracking all the live action here in Abu Dhabi throughout the entire week. If this opening match was any indication of what's to come, you better buckle up. Thank you so much for tuning in. We witnessed history being written on the court today. Stick around for more updates, keep that passion alive, and as always, keep your eye on the ball.